You so much, Chairman Barrasso and Ranking Member Carper and members of the committee. And it was a real pleasure working with Senator Whitehouse on that Save Our Seas bill. And thank you for inviting me today. In recent years, Americans across our country have woken up to the fact that we have a plastic pollution crisis. A study released last week found that the equivalent of millions of plastic bottles rain down or are swept onto our western national parks each year in the form of tiny plastic particles. We know plastic doesn't go away, so when it breaks down, we find it 2 miles above sea level in the Rocky Mountains in the form of rain. 7 miles below sea level in the Mariana Trench, the deepest place in the ocean, there are plastic wrappers. It's in our own bodies. Research shows we swallow a credit card's worth of plastic every week through our air, water, and food. For too long, we have placed the burden on millions of consumers and taxpayers through curbside recycling and the hope that if we dutifully sort our plastic into blue bins, we will reduce pollution. It's clear that this approach has failed. We cannot expect consumers to clean up all this plastic waste. We have lost sight of the foundation of our environmental laws and the teachings of Economics 101. The polluter, not the consumer or the taxpayer, should pay to clean up the waste. The place to focus is where plastic is created, at the front end of production where millions of tons are created, but companies have no responsibility once they sell their product. More and more cheap new plastic items are being produced that will never get recycled or reused. The burden falls back on our municipalities to manage a suffocating amount of plastic waste, costing local taxpayers billions of dollars a year across the country. And worse yet, most of that plastic recycling is a lie. It is actually landfilled, incinerated, and shipped overseas to developing countries. Is there any question why our local governments are shutting down recycling programs? Why do we force taxpayers to sort, clean, and transport plastic pollution at their own cost after companies had profited from them? Take a look at this chart, and I hope there's a smaller copy up there with you from 2017. Americans generated 35 million tons of plastic waste. Only 8% of that waste was sorted for recycling. The vast majority was sent directly to landfills and incineration, and that 8% was mostly shipped overseas to developing countries. Only a tiny fraction was recycled domestically. We can't just place the blame on other countries for polluting the oceans. If we can't recycle or manage our own plastic waste here in America, how can we expect a developing country to do so? Here's the root of the problem. This is plastic that is not manufactured for recycling or reuse. This is plastic that manufacturers have designed for a one-time use. It's the opposite of sustainable. Companies churn out new products. They'll show these around. Companies churn out new products and outsource the cleanup of their waste to taxpayers, beach and highway cleanups and Good Samaritans, none of whom can keep up with the avalanche of waste. We need to return to the polluter pays principle and recognize who the true polluters are. My bill, the Break Free from Plastic Pollution Act, does just that. We start by dramatically reducing the manufacture of those items that pollute the most and can't be recycled. Plastic bags top the list, causing tremendous environmental harm. For other products and packaging, we reform how these items are handled after consumer use. Producers need to take responsibility for the collection, recycling, and disposal of the products they create. This will create powerful incentives to design products that are more sustainable and easier to recycle. This is a tried and true market-proven concept. We already do this for batteries, paint, and other items that are dangerous if disposed improperly. Look closely at the soda bottle. Many U.S. states have had bottle deposits for decades. Using deposits on beverage containers greatly increases the return of those products for recycling and keeps them out of the environment. My bill also stops sending plastic waste overseas to developing countries and requires that new products be made from recycled plastic here in America. We need economies of scale to bring down the cost of recycled plastic compared to cheap new plastic. Many companies set recycled content goals, but are unable or unwilling to do so given the limited supply and high cost. Finally, my bill presses pause on expanding more plastic-producing plants. These new planned facilities are greenhouse gas superpolluters, and they are an environmental hazard to communities around them. If built, they are guaranteed to pump billions more tons of plastic waste into the environment. The lack of regulation on these facilities is shocking. Many Americans simply would not believe it. It's a scandal. This jar contains plastic pellets scooped from the riverbanks of Cox Creek, Texas, where Formosa Plastic is estimated to be discharging between 500 million and 5 billion plastic pellets each year. Around the globe, these plastic pellets are dumped, spilled, and lost to the environment at a rate of 250,000 tons per year. It's shocking that there is no federal ban on dumping plastic pellets in waterways. My bill would fix that. Colleagues, I was not the first person to become concerned with plastic pollution. There is a mass movement of people across our country who are fighting this awful situation. When people realize that the blue recycling bin is largely a lie, they are angry. They want answers. It's a shame that we are trashing our planet, but it's not the consumer's fault. This is not the fault of a few litter bugs. It's past time for Congress and the industry to step up on solutions to this problem. My legislation does just that. I'd like to submit a letter for the record from 470 organizations that support my bill, Mr. Chairman.
Without objection.
And I thank you for your time, and I'm deeply grateful for this committee's attention and involvement. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yield back.